Hi, I'm Sawood, Web and Data Scientist at the Internet Archive. Today, I'll be talking about readying web archives to consume and leverage web bundles. Web bundle is an emerging web technology. It's a format of packaging multiple resources in a single bundle. These resources can be from a single origin or from multiple origins, and the whole bundle can be delivered by any distributor, be it another origin or a thumb drive or something else. When a bundle is received by a web browser, the bundle is unpacked and all the resources contained in the bundle are loaded in caches. And then those resources are treated as if they are coming from their respective origin, not necessarily from the distributor's origin. These bundled resources can be those individual exchanges or their groups can be signed by the origin or may not be signed. If they are signed, then it is trusted by the browser that they are indeed coming from that origin. So if you want to understand web bundles in terms of WARC files, I would say take a WARC file, put its CDX file in the same so that the index is there to reference to individual records, and also add a manifest that includes some metadata and stuff like entry point URI that will be loaded when the bundle is loaded in the browser. However, it is not exactly a WARC file. It uses CBOR format, which is a JSON, binary JSON format. That's how the HTTP response messages are stored in web bundles. It is lossy in terms that HTTP headers with the same name, they are concatenated. And it does not have the kind of flexibility that WARC files have to add additional provenance information in WARC headers. Because the bundles are optimized for performance, not for long-term preservation with provenance. So web packaging has a documentation on use cases, and one of their use cases is archival. This was recognized from a tweet of Andy Jackson, and later we pitched the use case in the Escape workshop where it was discussed in more detail. So currently we have a problem in crawling JavaScript-driven web pages. It's like heavily using JavaScript. They inject resources from JavaScript, and those resources are not easy to be found. An experiment was done several years ago where Phantom.js discovered 75% more resources than Herbert, but crawled 12 times slower. So bundles have this potential to enable efficient and coherent crawling because they package multiple resources at once and we don't have to worry about discovering them. However, our current crawlers are not ready for web bundles yet. What we need to do is we need to introduce content negotiation feature in crawlers so that they ask server to prefer web bundles if the server has one. And server has likely bundled resources that would be difficult to discover. Another advantage that we'll get from here is we'll have more efficient liveness handling because a single transaction will now bring multiple resources. So another change that we need to make is once we receive web bundle media type, it is not a single resource. I mean, it is, but it is a bundle of multiple resources. So we need to understand the media type and decompose it so that individual responses are stored in separate WARC records for more efficient indexing and traditional replay. However, we are not in a hurry. The servers will continue to serve non-bundled resources for a while. On the replay side, we have identified numerous problems like cookie violations, origin violations, temporal violations, live leakage. And we have talked about these in the past. The packaging has the potential to eliminate these issues. So let's take an example of a web page and look at its page source, which points to a style sheet and an image that is embedded in the page, right? When we replay from an archive, we need to rewrite the references of that style sheet and the image so that those are coming from the archive and not from the live web. And this is generally done on the server side. However, there is another approach of handling this. You do not rewrite anything on the server side, but on the client side, when the request is actually made, at that time, you can capture it and make necessary changes in the request so that the resource is coming from web archive and not from the live side. For this, we introduced a JavaScript library based on service workers called Reconstructive. Another tool that exists for this, another library, is called wombat.js, which doesn't use service workers, but it kind of overrides the DOM itself and handles using JavaScript proxy object. The third approach of archival replay is based on proxy. And a good example of that would be old web.today, where the browser that is emulated inside is displaying the URL as if the page is coming from the live web, but this is actually coming from an archive. And there is a proxy behind the scene that takes care of necessary negotiation. And this is the kind of replay we would like for the web bundles to enable without necessarily setting up a proxy. So one possible way to implement would be to leverage something called portals. It's an experimental HTML element, which is similar to iframe, but it allows seamless transition to become the main context when activated. So in this case, you can be on the calendar page of a URL. You discovered a memento from there, which was loaded in portal, which is like an iframe. But when you activate it, it takes up the whole page, and the URL is changed as if it was the URL of the content inside the portal. You can deactivate it and go back to the calendar page. Again, this is an experimental feature. In this case, if we serve bundles with the origin, the primary origin, then the page will be served as if it is coming from the original page, but we can also use it for traditional rewritten URL style replay. So there exists a problem in the current implementation of web bundle specification, where it prefers the most recent version of a resource if multiple resource copies are present in different caches, right? So if someone has already downloaded Wikipedia page, the live side, and then you are trying to download a version of it from the Internet Archive without the Internet Archive domain rewritten, basically, if the original domain name is used, what will happen is the browser will see one in another cache where the live site copy was present, and it will serve that one instead. Again, if there are multiple mementos, the most recent one will be served. So this needs to be handled somehow. One way would be to somehow implement native time gate support in the exchange loading specification, but there are other ways to handle it. One possibility is to do namespaced cache for temporal coherence. What we do in this case is the server decides what would be the cache in which this bundle needs to be unpacked. And the server says to the client that the exchange should load only from this bundle and not from anywhere else. So that way, the server decides for each composite memento, it decides a separate cache namespace and loads resources in there. That's how the name collisions and will not happen. However, this is not a feature that is implemented already. We requested for it. We proposed it. This will be beneficial if they enable sandboxing via namespaces, so that cookies and some other security features don't leak into it. One more problem we see is catch-all route to prevent zombies. So what happens is bundles, if they do not have a resource that is needed by a web page, they will go and try to fetch from the live side, and we do not want this. So one way to do this would be to introduce wildcard routes or a service worker for namespaced caches to handle missing resources. However, these are not something that are implemented yet. There are some other means they are exploring to handle some of these situations. Web archives currently lack technical means to prove fixity and non-repudiation. It is often desired for web archives to be able to technically prove that this page that we are serving is indeed how we observed it. And currently there is no technical means. However, signed exchanges have the potential to serve this purpose. But there is a problem. The signed exchanges are only valid for 7 days. And the validation process is binary in nature. It either when a signature is validated, it is either valid or invalid, right? What we want is a third state, which is temporally valid. And what we want is for a mechanism to look at the memento date time header of the response and see if this signature were to be validated in the past at that time, would it be valid? If necessary infrastructure is set up around this, this will allow the non-repudiation features that we are looking for. So say we do not have long-lasting signed exchanges. What can be done about unsigned exchanges? The problem is the origin will likely change. The specifications are not stable yet on this one. And they're trying to do some sort of isolation so that cookies and some other security features of the live side do not leak into a bundle and make it available to the to another origin or distributor, which means we'll lose the benefit of replaying archive pages as the original domain. So origin violation will be something that will be need to figure it out how to handle that. However, the benefit will still be there for faster replay and better caching from popular mementos, right? An archive can still create web bundles with rewritten URIs to replay in the traditional fashion, right? So rather than serving them as if they are coming from the main original domain, they can still pretend as if it is coming from the web archive while it's still bundling things. Another wish list we would like to have is like if bundled exchanges are to be served as the origin, we would like a means to acknowledge that, and especially that this is a memento. So we created some mockups, and there are some experimental implementations of this, where information from the link header and memento date time are exposed in the browser's address bar. The browser should actually enable necessary security features for archive web pages, which is actually read-only, and prevent live leakage. So in conclusion, the packaging has a unique opportunity to devise technology that supports web archiving and provides a much needed capability to verify integrity of archived web resources. With web moving towards web bundles, whenever it happens, we'll have more efficient and coherent crawling, provided we devise our crawlers to take advantage of it. If time gate or name caches for loading are implemented or some other means in the same line, then we'll have more temporally coherent replay and temporal validations of signed exchanges. When those are implemented, if ever, then we'll have a means for long-term fixity and non-repudiation. Native memento support in web browsers would allow visual archived resource identification. there is a lot of wish list here. Some of these things are already possible, and some that we need to react to in order to take advantage of those. Read more about our initial position paper in Escape workshop in our preprint paper, and feel free to talk to us to discuss it more. I would also encourage people from the archiving community to be active in the working group of web bundles, and put some weight there and raise your voice that there is an opportunity we can leverage here. Thank you so much.